Dr. Jazz.
To your music for a very long time, actually, like ever since In a Different Light came out, which was way back now. Like,
yeah, it's an old record, but
really,
yeah, it's too bad. When that record came out, the record label didn't do anything with it.
Yeah, I have to be honest. I got like a friend of mine. I don't have the original. A friend of mine burned a copy because I was like, man, I need this record, and a friend of mine was like, yeah, man. Here, that's the way. It's like,
no, don't worry about it because there's no company anymore, and I don't know. It's kind of, I guess they're long out of business. But it's too bad because if they had promoted that record, I think it could have been pretty big.
Yeah, it's very musical, and the musicality and musicianship is so good. It's such a high level, and all these players you gather there. It's just incredible. Also, so
Yeah, I mean, the concept of that record was, that's why I called it In a Different Light. I wanted to show everybody in a different light, because everyone was thinking, oh, Schofield, and Mike and Rick Goodrich, they think of them as not, more like being fusion players and stuff. So I wanted to show them playing jazz, which is really what their main thing was, not saying that the other stuff wasn't good.
It's sure.
Great. But it I just wanted to show them, and the whole idea was all the tracks were done live. No, that was the concept. Two other concepts in there. One was all tracks done live they're done in studio, but nothing in a booth. Everybody in the same room.
Oh wow.
And so no overdubbing could be done. And also, I wanted to show the Boston sound. Because that's really, they all came through the Boston, and they all kind of came through Mick Goodrich.
Yeah, of course, yes, yeah.
So that was the concept, and then I always like to have one track be kind of the oddball track, and that was the track with Gene Bertoncini.
Yeah,
which had nothing to do with any of that.
Yeah,
and Gene played amazing on that.
Yeah, such a player. Yeah.
Gene's was a good friend, and he always still talks about that. Okay, he says, "Thank you so much for putting me on the record and letting me do that. That was so great. It's one of my favorite moments." So it was all a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, your version. I listened yesterday to your version with Mike, softly, as in the morning. It's just like it's burning. Like it's really cool. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, actually,
beautiful stuff.
We topped it with the new one. We did. There's another version of Softly coming out on the new record.
Oh, really?
The one with me and Alan Dawson.
Oh, yeah. That's one of the sickest playing by Mike, probably. Like
that's what I'm saying, and it's like,
damn. And he's so precise.
It's like, and the drumming. I mean, Alan Dawson.
Yeah, such an underrated player.
Yeah, and Alan was like reading Mike, just so on it. And I spent about a year really putting this together because I had 30 tracks.
Wow.
And I had to not only pick just the best tracks. Some tracks couldn't use because it was recorded on a cassette. Like a high-end cassette, but in the middle of the tune, the cassette would go finish. So I'd lose. I lost like a part of the track, so I couldn't. There was some tracks that, like 3 or 4, were like that. So they were great tracks. Couldn't really use them. And then there was, sometimes the audience was a little noisy, and because it was a crazy crowd.
Where did you guys record this?
We recorded it at a little club called the 1369 up in Boston. And it was really like a very hip club, and everybody played there. And I was playing there a lot, and that's how this gig came about. I was the leader, and I brought in Alan and Mike.
And which year was that?
It was July 1985.
85. Oh, okay. Basically when you did like all the groups with Mike and Victor Lewis and all those guys.
Yeah, it was around that time too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had been playing together quite a bit.
Yeah.
And so anyway, yeah. So it's I had to go through the 30 tunes, and not like I said, not only pick the best cuts and everything, I have to go through all that. Then I wanted to make it varied, so I had to look for variation. So I really found, because we've got we do a version of Peace, and it's really beautiful ballad. Mike does a long solo thing on it, and then we do Like Someone in Love, and I play the melody.
Yeah. Oh wow, beautiful.
And so there's a little bit of that in there, and and then we did Windows, Chick Corea tune.
Chick Corea, yeah.
And so we have a thing in 3. So there's and then we do Mike's tune Bruise, which is this crazy blues, and Mike kind of rocks out.
Yeah.
You had to have that in there.
Yeah, sure.
And all the tracks I kind of I did. I think, believe it or not, there was even editing on the track you just heard. There's editing.
Wow.
I did a lot of work, but on Bruise, it's 14 minutes.
Wow.
I don't touch it.
Yeah, sure.
So you get the real feeling. But if I did that with all the tracks, it would only have 4 tracks on the record.
Yeah, sure.
And it would be like, do we really need this? So, and even Mike said to me, he says, "Oh, you're not going to let it just be endless notes." He says, "You're going to, he says, I hope you're going to really put it together." I said, "Yeah, of course." So anyway, I it took me almost a year to really just go through everything and pick the right things and where to edit and how to make it so that you don't hear any kind of edits. But anyway, it's coming out in be this spring. And we don't have a release date as such. We're just getting the cover together now, and so that's it.
Beautiful, yeah. It's nice to hear.
I wanted to hear a little bit.
Oh, thanks so much for sharing. It's like I love all those groups with Mike that you did in the '80s. It's Smart Moves and Urban Earth and all those records that they're just like. It's so nice to hear you with Mike. I wanted to ask you this: like, when does your story with Mike begin, actually?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm trying to remember exactly how we met, but we kind of just met when he came to the city. I can't remember what it was. I might have. Sometimes I wonder if it was because I remember when I was playing with Jim Hall, he would come by, but I think it was before then. And I got on somehow I get on a gig with him, and I was saying, "Damn, this guy is onto something."
Yeah.
Because nobody was playing like that, really. Mike had his own thing.
Yeah.
I guess people up in Boston kind of knew it because he would play at Pooh's Pub. And I had heard of this Mike Stern guy, but, I didn't know much about. And then he came to the city, and we just started playing. And we played at the infamous 55 Grand Street.
Oh, wow.
That was before the 55 bar. I know it's weird, 55 to 55.
Yeah.
But there was a club called the 55 Grand Street, and Mike lived in the building.
Oh,
the club was on the first floor, and he lived on the top floor. And I got to say, let's say some stuff went down in those days.
Sure.
And I was playing there 3 or 4 nights a week.
Wow,
with Mike, and sometimes with Laney. And it was like a thing. I just basically was there all the time and hanging with Mike, after the gig till 7 a.m. It was like, that kind of life, because he was right upstairs. So we were just, having party time. And, the hang was, and the bands were usually Victor Lewis or Joey Barron or Adam Nussbaum or trying to remember who else, but it was like those were the drummers.
Amazing.
And then Hiram Bullock would come and hang and play with us, and Jocko was there periodically, hanging around and playing. We used to play with two basses.
Really?
Oh yeah, and
Wow.
and
Are there some like recordings of that or no?
no, that's the problem. We didn't have
Damn.
iPhones and things like
Shit.
that. We
Yeah.
just did. We didn't think of it as anything amazing. Dave Sanborn was always
Wow.
hanging, playing with us. Michael Brecker, you know, it was a crazy time.
Yeah.
And we'd start. Usually the gig was just me, Mike, and Victor or whoever was playing, and then it was a host of characters who came by and sat in.
That's
And
amazing.
yeah, that was good. So then that ended kind of abruptly, but the club went kind of belly up, and the guys were had issues. So then the 55 started, which
Yeah.
pretty much I think Mike kind of started it with Jeff Andrews more. I think Jeff Andrews started it.
Really?
And
I didn't know that. Wow.
yeah, I think Jeff,
Wow.
and Jeff is a good friend of mine. I love Jeff. And Jeff and Mike started playing duo there or something. Then they started having trios, and then somehow I ended up back in there, and I played for about 4 years, 3 nights a week. I played
Wow.
Monday and Wednesday with Mike, and Sunday with Laney, and that went
Wow.
on for at least 3 or 4 years.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I did that a lot, and so we had some good times. So yeah, I went from 155 to the other 55.
That's beautiful. I mean, you also mentioned Jim Hall before. I saw you shared the other, I don't know, when was it, like some footage of you, Elliot Zygmunt, and
Yeah.
Jim Hall. And, Jim Hall, what he plays there, it's just, I mean, Jim for me, it's like, it's for every guitarist, he's up there, right?
Oh, there's no question.
How did your story with Jim go? I mean, like.
Well, it was great. I mean, the problem that when I worked with Jim, he didn't have a recording contract. He was in between. So I played with him for 1.5 years.
Oh, really?
And we're out on some little obscure record that came out in Italy, which I have somewhere in my files, which, and I still have cassettes of us.
Oh, wow.
So occasionally I may release a few things.
Yeah.
Some with, there's also on a bootleg website, there's the concert that, it's not a great recording, but we did a concert with me, Jim, and Pat Metheny and Ben
Seriously?
Riley at
Really?
City College. That's out on a bootleg.
Oh, to check it out. Wow.
I think I may have it. If I have it, I'll see if I can send it to you.
Wow, please. Wow, that's incredible.
And then we did a broadcast on BGO, which is, I think, somewhere in the BGO files, with Ben Riley. Because I did the gig. Sometimes it was Elliot. Sometimes it was. And I just saw Elliot yesterday.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Yeah, it's like he was playing like a session at a friend of mine's house. And he said, yeah, because I'm like a bike rider. So I took my bike ride, and his house was not far from where I was. So I went over there, and I hadn't seen Elliot in a while. So I got to see him. And they asked me, can you sit in? So I played a tune with them. And I'll tell you, Elliot sounds better than ever.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I mean,
Wow.
his playing was so, I mean, I always loved his playing because we played together with Jim Hall, but we also played in a lot of other bands. We played for many years with Don Friedman and Attila Zoller.
Oh, wow.
Played in that band. And then we played many years with Don Friedman Trio. So we, and then we did other gigs with other people too. But Elliot is one of the, great drummers. But anyway, so sorry, I went off on a.
Oh, no, please. I'm just leaving you. It's so beautiful to hear this stuff. So I'm just like,
It's funny. This is all reminiscing about the old days. It's like the old joke about this guitar player I won't name, who was very, very famous, pretty well known, big in the studios, and I don't know, his career kind of came to an abrupt end, and it was really bad for him for a lot of years. So somebody ran into him, and they said to him, "Hey, how you doing? I haven't seen you in a long time." He says, "Yeah, where you living now?" He says, "Mostly in the past."
Wow. Yeah. Shit.
So I'm
Man.
like kind of living in the past now.
No,
So
it's not.
forgive me.
Oh, it's so nice. No, I want to go there because it's so nice to hear this stuff. You've done so much work and as a leader as well and as a sideman, that it's just incredible amount of music you've created, and it's nice to hear that people hopefully get to dig into this and to share this, and
Yeah,
so that's great.
thank you. Yeah, but yeah. So where was I now?
Yeah, I wanted to
Sorry.
ask you with Jim. I mean, like,
Yeah, Jim.
how was
So
it
yeah,
like
I
with
was
him?
working with Jim a lot, and I was like his bass player, and I loved it, and I loved Jim.
Mm,
But at the time, I was involved in the duo with Sheila,
yeah.
the bass and voice duo, and I kind of had to make a choice.
Mm,
And probably career-wise would have been smarter to go with Jim. Because with Jim wanted a bass player that did all the gigs. He didn't want me to just come in once in a while. And I totally understand that.
sure.
And so, then I was looking, I said, well, doing bass and voice is really an enormous challenge.
Yeah.
And I ended up doing it for 14 years. And it was, and we did travel around the world, and did a lot of stuff. And I thought it was just an amazing event to do that. So
Yeah.
I had to make a tough choice. And I couldn't sub out with the bass and voice.
No, man, yeah. No, but I loved your connection, the all-time feeling and all those early records. I mean, it's beautiful how you guys seem to blend together, and it's so intimate because, it's guitar, it's more notes on the bass, it's even less, it's more sparse, and I love it how you approached it, and you guys had such a nice chemistry going on. So
Yeah, I really loved doing the bass and voice. That was, really, because I had, in some ways, I hate to say it, it really kind of hurt my career because, and I'll tell you why. And some people would hear me play, and they hear me play on that, and they would say, "Oh, we don't want to use him because I don't want that kind of bass playing."
Mm. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
Because when I played with Sheila, I was doing, double stops, bowing, it wasn't just walking and playing. And so they were thinking like, if he's going to get on my gig and play like that, that's not going to work. And of course I wouldn't. You heard me play with Mike Stern. Yeah,
Sure.
I play the music where the music is. But a lot of people heard me in that bass and voice thing, which I was, really doing a whole other thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they thought that that's what I do. It's like when I, in the 90s, I got into Afro-Cuban music.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw it.
And I mean, I really got into it. And almost to the point of I was mostly doing Latin jazz and doing salsa gigs and doing, and I played with Juan Carlos Formel, who's a big Cuban guy. I played with him for 5 years.
Wow.
I was playing with a strict. That guy still doesn't. I mean, he's now running Los Bonbon because that was his father's group.
Mm-hmm.
He's now back in Cuba as the leader of Los Bonbon, the #1 Cuban dance band in the world.
Yeah.
And but he never spoke English. I never got to talk to him. I played with him for 5 years, and he couldn't even get my name. He just goes on bass, Harvie on bass. That's what he would say. So, I love this guy. He's such a great musician. So anyway, but I was playing so much Afro-Cuban.
Yeah.
I remember getting a phone call from this guy, and he says to me, yeah, I have a jazz, I need to get a jazz gig set up at this club. And somebody told me that you play jazz.
Wow. Man.
And I said,
deep.
Yeah, I could play some jazz, And so, because I was playing with like, I was doing some gigs with Arturo Sandoval and Paquito and Arturo Farrell and Chico Farrell, and this group called Sayotos, which was a steady Latin group every week. And I was and I made like 4 Afro-Cuban records.
Yeah.
So most people were thinking of me as kind of a Latin bass player. But I just got so into it, and I toured with
what got you
too.
into it? How come? What was the reason? You remember when?
Yeah, I do. Actually, I do remember. I'm thinking one day I was listening to the radio, listening to some Afro-Cuban stuff, which I never did. Just came on the radio, or whatever. I said, that music is really, really great. But I don't know how to do it. I don't know anything about it. I am gonna go to I'm gonna go to a Latin thing tonight, just to watch the music.
Wow.
I was thinking, yeah, I'm going. So I looked around in the Village Voice at the time, and I said, oh yeah, there's one at the I forget the name of the club, but it used to be not the Village Gate, but because the people, Raphael took over. It was like uptown. So anyway, I went there and I heard the band, and they sounded really good. And the bass player, Mario Rodriguez, was playing. So afterwards I went up to him and I said, yeah, I really enjoyed hearing you play. The music was really good. And I said, and he knew who I was. So we were talking. He said, oh, yeah, Harvie S. So wow. Nice to meet you, and I'm a real big fan, and da-da-da. And I said, great. And he said, we got to get together. And I said, would you show me a little bit about this music? And I said, I would really appreciate it if you give me a lesson. He said, I don't give you a lesson. Are you kidding me? He gets all upset. I said, no, I don't know anything. I'm happy to learn. So he says, yeah. So we got together. So then a couple of weeks later, he calls me up and he says, I have a gig that I want you to sub on.
Oh, wow.
I said, it's like a jazz gig, right?
Yeah.
No. It's a Latin gig. I said, I'm not going to do it. I said, what are you, crazy? I don't know anything. I suck. He says, no. It was with Bobby Sanabria.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, that's like the high end.
Yeah.
And the whole band was like, Louis Kahn. This was like primo guys. Primo. Can't remember who the piano player was. These guys were the best. So I show up. The thing is, I argued with them. We were almost a screaming match.
Oh.
I said, no, I'm not going to do it. I can't do it. I don't know how to play this music. Maybe in a couple of months or a year, I'll be glad to do it. He says, you're going. You're doing it. And I'm not taking, and I said, okay, I'll do it. So I go to the gig, and I got through the gig. Am I going to say I sounded good? No.
Yeah.
But it got me saying, okay, I have a challenge in front of me.
Yeah, that's good.
And I started studying, and got to the point of, and then I also was touring with Ray Vega, and I'm on if you go on YouTube, look up Ray Vega at the Burn Festival.
Oh, okay.
They did a beautiful video, like with high-end cameras.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And the band was Willie Martinez, Wilson Chembo Corniel on conga drums, and really, really killing band. So and I did it, and then like the Latin thing is kind of phased out.
Yeah.
Like all the salsa clubs are gone, the little Latin jazz things are pretty much almost all gone. So I haven't really done much. Occasionally occasionally when they want a bass player that can play jazz and Afro-Cuban, I get a call for a thing to do something like that. So I haven't done much of that anymore. But I love that music. And
it's incredible. I saw that like in your discography, and like listening, I was like, wow, what? Like, okay.
I took a left.
Yeah, like okay, that's a surprise. It's good. I think I like that, because just to do one thing kind of, I don't know, can get boring probably. So, and you learn new things.
I wasn't. It's interesting. I was kind of getting not bored, but frustrated.
Yeah.
And when I got into the Latin thing, it just brought me into a whole other world. I guess that's my nature, because I was actually even in one of the first fusion bands.
Really?
I was playing electric bass and with Barry Miles.
Really?
And we were like this is in the 70s.
Yeah.
I was playing, we worked a lot. Vic Juris, I got Vic Juris on the gig.
Wow.
With Terry Silverlight on drums. Terry was like 16 and kicking ass.
Wow.
We played the Village Vanguard. We played at Ronnie Scott's in London. We
Seriously?
played, we played all these clubs, and we did a bunch of concerts. And I made 2 records with them.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Magic Theater, and one called Barry Miles and Silverlight.
Wow.
We made 2 records on RCA Victor. And I
Have to
played,
check it out.
mostly electric bass. People say, Harvie S plays electric bass. Yeah, I played a lot. I used to play recording sessions with James Brown.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
I was doing a lot of studio work. So I'm saying I'm one of these kind of people. I have traveled around. I don't do just one thing.
Yeah,
But I mean,
that's good.
I get into it. And I still occasionally play some electric on. Like I played a track on James Weidman's record on electric, and I played a track on this Larry Corbin record we did with Bergonzi. I played electric on 2 tracks on that, and so I'm still occasionally playing some electric bass, but not a lot,
Yeah. No, it's a different beast. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love it. To me,
Yeah.
and then for a while, and I put up, I think most of it's all lost, but I had 2 tracks I put up on YouTube with a band I had with for a short time called Double Bass,
Oh,
which
really?
was me and Jeff Andrews.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And we had because Jeff and I were good friends, and I loved playing together with him.
Yeah.
And so we kind of had a band. We did something with me and Leon Parker, and it's up on YouTube.
Oh, I definitely have to. I love Jeff Andrews. I mean, such an underrated player. I mean,
Yeah,
like such a player.
yeah. I mean, he's to me one of the few people that was an electric bass player, but he was a jazz player.
Yeah.
He
Definitely.
he could play the rock and the funk, but he was a jazz guy, and he listened to, he knew all the Blue Note stuff, and he was into playing on giant steps and jazz stuff. I mean, Jeff was just a great musician.
Yeah.
I really miss him.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's it. I guess I'm like, no one's been able to put their finger on me. You do this,
Musician.
And,
that's it. That sounds.
I love to play, but I love
Yeah.
to play great music. And it's like when I first heard Mike Stern, a lot of people were thinking, Mike Stern, he's this rocker, and I heard him and I said, my God, this guy is onto something.
Yeah.
This guy's a world-class jazz player who's taking it into a new, important direction.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
I always felt that way. And when I, Schofield, the same thing. I mean, I knew Sco when he was younger, and he was a hardcore bebopper.
Yeah. I love those early records, man, with Swallow and Nussbaum, the trio.
Yeah, but I'm talking even before that,
before.
because I'm
Oh, yeah.
older. Like I knew him when he was like, 19, 20.
Oh,
He
wow.
was a hardcore bebopper.
Yeah.
Like Wes Montgomery and that kind of style.
Yeah.
And then he developed.
Yeah, sure.
And so was Abercrombie. I knew Abercrombie when he was very young, and he wasn't into any electric stuff. He was strictly a swinging jazz player.
Yeah.
That's what he wanted to do. But then people develop, and I really really applaud that.
Yeah.
So.
Did you play? I mean, I know you did Arrival with Mick Goodrick and Abercrombie, and I think that's probably the only time those guys played together.
It is.
On a record, right?
That's why I did it.
Yeah. I love it.
Because
And with Marvin, I think, on drums, right?
Marvin Smitty Smith, yeah.
Such a cool one, man. How was that like, the experience with John? I mean, like,
Well, yeah, it's great. I actually I did another record with John with another guitar player. I did a record with Yarek Smetana.
oh yeah, oh yeah, sure.
We did a duo. We did a quartet record too together. But John and I played together over the years, and that record was fun. I
Yeah.
think I did it for a Japanese label. I kind of realized later, because we did mostly original stuff, and I mean, I think it's a great record. I don't think they liked it so much
Oh,
because I think they just wanted standards,
yeah, yeah.
and I wasn't sensitive enough to realize that. I was so excited about doing the music, doing original music and writing, and so, but yeah, so they didn't do much with it. But
Yeah,
that's a
that's a
great
shame.
record. I
Yeah,
think.
it's a great record. Yeah, I love that one.
And
But
they had never, and I talked to John. I said, you and Mick have been playing together since you were teenagers. They had been hanging out. I said, did you ever record together? He said, we never did. I said, well, you're gonna with me.
yeah, yeah, it's so nice, and and Marvin, of course, he's a monster on drums, so it's a beautiful,
Yeah,
beautiful album.
Marvin, he killed
Yeah,
on that record.
yeah,
So
such
yeah,
a drama.
that was a lot of fun to get to do that.
But Harvey, you mentioned like early 70s, and I just wanted to go a little bit back, like let's say it's mid 60s,
Well,
late
we've been
60s.
whoa. Okay.
Because like who got you then inspired at that time for jazz? Like, do you remember some jazz concerts you saw in New York, or like what were like those mind-blowing experiences for you
Well,
that period?
I don't know. I was originally a piano player.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow, I didn't know that.
I have a degree in composition and piano.
Oh, wow.
I never had a bass lesson.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that. That's so
So
cool.
when I was younger, in high school, I started to get into jazz. I never really got into rock. I was always into jazz. Made me kind of kind of an outcast. But I had friends that were had enough friends and people I knew that were into jazz and stuff.
Yeah.
So I kept it to a very small circle. But yeah, I was when I was very young, like 15, I was what I would do is, and you gotta understand, I didn't have any money. I didn't have that. I didn't grow up rich, so I would save up so I could take. This is so pathetic. So I could. I'd save up $1 to take. That would give me a round trip ticket on the bus from my home into on a Sunday, which is the only day I could go to the jazz workshop, because on Sunday
they had the matinee, right?
The matinee,
yeah.
and if you're under 21, you could go to the matinee. During the week, you couldn't go at night, but you could go. So I would save up $1 to do that, and then when I got there, it cost $1. 99 cents.
That's bizarre.
That's a long time ago. 99 cents they would charge. You believe that?
No.
For a music charge, and then 50 cents for a Coke.
Damn.
And so I would save that up, and I would, on Sundays, not every Sunday, but quite often, I would go to the jazz workshop.
Wow.
And I saw Coltrane.
Wow. How was that like? Crazy, right?
Amazing.
I think Jerry Bergonzi told me like he saw Coltrane many times live, and it was just like, that he was out of this world, like that it was like a spiritual experience always, just to...
Yeah, when just Coltrane in the room, just him standing there, was like, like, wow. And so, yeah, I went, and then also I would eventually, when I got to be 16, I got my driver's license.
Yeah.
So then on Sundays, I could drive to Lenny's on the Turnpike, which was in Peabody. And Lenny's on the Turnpike was a really good, and they had a matinee.
Awesome.
And so I went to I would go to the matinees. And of course, I continued always going to those clubs. And then eventually, like, I started to become the house bass player. When I got out of school, I was kind of like the house bass player at Jazz Workshop and Lenny's.
Wow.
So I was kind of doing it. And Lenny kind of got my career going. You know, when I was living kind of hand to mouth. I had no money. I was starving. Lenny would call me for gigs. Lenny called me one time and he says, Stan Kenton's in town and he needs a bass player to cover for 3 weeks.
Wow.
And he's auditioning. And I was so thinking of myself as not being very good. So I'm saying to Lenny, I said, so why are you calling me? I said that to him. He says, be there tonight. And he hangs up on me.
Yeah.
I went, oh, I guess I better go. So I went over there. I got the gig. So next thing I know, I'm out on the road with Stan Kenton. I had never played with anybody big time, just local people.
Yeah.
And so I did the 3 weeks with Stan Kenton because John Worcester was coming back and the other bass player left. So they just needed me for 3 weeks. And Stan was really great. And he said to me, he says, look, I love the way you play and I'd love to keep you in the band. He says, but we already, you knew the situation. We booked Josh. I said, that was great. Thank you for having me. So that was my, so Lenny did that. And then then Lenny called me and he called me for 3 weeks of gigs. He called me for a week with Chris Connor, Mose Allison,
Wow.
and Al Cohn and Zoot Sims.
Wow.
They needed a bass player for those 3 weeks. He says, can you do these 3 weeks? I said, oh, thank God I didn't have any money. I could barely pay, my rent. I couldn't pay my rent. I said, great. So now here's the story. So I have the gig. 2 days before the gig, I had this candle in my room and it had like a wick and the wick wasn't in the center. It was kind of on the side. And I didn't realize that it heated up the glass. So I woke up in the middle of the night. I was moving it or something and I burnt my hand.
Oh, man.
I mean, I heard my skin sizzle on my left hand.
Left hand.
My middle finger, middle finger and this finger were burnt.
Wow.
I mean, really burnt. And I had the gig, the 3 weeks of work coming up in 2 days.
How did you sell that?
I said, I'm going to do it.
Man.
I put Band-Aids on. Sometimes I'd be playing along and I'd go, oh! I'd be screaming. It was so painful. But I made it through the three weeks on this gig. And luckily I did because on the Chris Connor gig, Micah Benny was playing piano, and such a great musician. And he said to me, you should move to New York. I said, me? I'm not good enough to move to New York. Are you kidding? Are you out of your mind? You gotta understand, I didn't play the bass till I was 18.
Yeah.
I'm like 21 then.
Wow.
So I'm like, and I never had a teacher, so I didn't know what the hell I'm doing. He says, no, you should move to New York. I said, I can't, I'm not ready. So we argued again. There it is. I'm always fighting with everybody. So he said, look, I'm working with Jackie Paris and Emery Moss, and we're going to have some work. If you want, you can come and do the gigs. Actually, believe it or not, I said, Dave Holland's been doing the gig, because that's when he left Miles.
Yeah.
He said, and Dave Holland is going to leave. So if you want to take Dave Holland, I'm like, me take Dave Holland's place? What are you, out of your mind? He says, yeah, if you want to do the gig. I said, well, I was thinking, I don't have enough money for next month's rent. So I said, yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah.
So I got out of the place I was living. I borrowed my mother's car. I said, look, you don't need the car. You're not going anywhere. I need this car. I took her car and my bass and my amp and a couple of maybe $200 that I had. And that's it. I got in the car and we had a 2-month gig. This is the old days at the Great Gorge Playboy Club.
Wow.
So I didn't have a place to live, but I could live there for 2 months. And we did this gig with Jackie Paris and, Anne-Marie Moss, who was, really, I know a lot of people, and Jackie was great, of course, but people know that. But Anne-Marie Moss was his wife. They were married. And Anne-Marie, was one of the greatest singers ever. She had a 3.5 octave range.
Really? Wow.
Her time was perfect. She could sing with so much feeling. She was really one of the greats. I loved Anne-Marie. But anyway, I played with Jimmy Madison was the drummer. And Jimmy was another great drummer. Still, Jimmy's still around. And so anyway, I did that gig. And then I guess, well, there's no turning back now. So I through a lot of things, talking to people, I ended up getting an apartment in Queens. And then Jerry Bergonzi ends up moving in with me for like a year.
How was that like?
Jerry and I were crazy roommates, and we had a cat. And but then Jerry decided, he said, yeah, I want to go back to Boston.
Yeah.
And, it was for him was a great move. And he made, needless to say, a great career.
Yeah.
And still, he's at the top of his game.
Yeah.
So that was kind of it. So next thing I know, here I'm in New York, and
how are those years like for you? We're talking like, let's say 72 to 77, mid 70s. I know you did later play with Art Farmer, and I love those records with Steve Kuhn, that they are just like mind blowing. But like, how was the scene like for you? How did you integrate into it and your experience then?
It was kind of an interesting time. I lived in Queens there. Then I decided, I found a loft in the city, and now this was a big jump in rent. I had to go up to $120 a month.
Yeah, that's so bizarre.
From $70 a month.
Yeah.
My apartment was $140, and I split it with a roommate. Now I'm paying $120 a month. So,
that's incredible.
And I was, I was living on 28th Street, and I had a funky loft, and but I was in the city, and I didn't have a car, so I did everything. You could get around because they used to have the English style cabs. They were like bigger cars, the checker cabs. And so I could get around the city with taxis and get to and from gigs with a bass. And I have a 3-floor walk up, and I had an amp that weighed like 100 pounds. So like I have to, I would have to carry the amp down the stairs, walk the 3 flights up, get my bass, go down, then walk to the corner with my amp. And then walk to the corner, walk back, get my bass, walk to the corner again, and flag a cab, and go to the gig. And then, you get home, and I'd have to go in and do that whole thing again, like walk up the 3 flights. My legs were getting strong though.
Yeah. I can believe that.
So anyway, but it was good, and I got to play with a lot of great people, And I got together with David Friedman, the vibist, and a lot of people don't realize this, and I want to set the record straight. We started Double Image. Double Image was Dave Samuels, myself, and Mike DePasqua, we had this band, and everyone thinks they were the leaders, but they weren't. We were all, it was a co-led band.
Collective kind of, wow, okay.
And I was very responsible for the writing of the music, the organization of the arrangements, and, but everyone, just kind of thought, oh, they're the leaders, and I'm just a bass player in that band.
Yeah.
Well, I was a leader of that band. And it was a great band, but personally, we didn't get along that great.
Yeah, sure.
And eventually, we kind of broke that up through lots of many reasons. But because we were hot. I mean, we were like when they gave the Grammy Awards in Europe. They have a Grammy Award. We were second.
Wow.
We lost to this guy you never heard of, some guy named Keith Jarrett.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of this guy?
No.
Yeah, imagine losing to Keith Jarrett. How do we deal with an embarrassment like that?
But is it with those guys you first went to Europe also? Like with?
Yeah, that was my first European tour, and we toured Europe all the time.
That was mid-70s, or?
Yeah, we were doing two, maybe 3 tours a year.
Wow. How was that like for you? Like the first European experience?
I mean, of course, it was amazing. I mean, to be over there. But those are this is so different. I mean, it's good to tell the younger kids see this stuff. We traveled with Mike DePasqua's drum set, which was huge. It wasn't just a drum set. He had the roto toms, the tuning roto toms. He had all this stuff. We tuned with it. We brought it over on the airplane.
Oh my, really? Jeez.
And a set of vibes, a set of marimba, my bass, and a bass amp. And
nowadays,
and a transformer because it was a U.S. current. And so, I had to bring my amp head there. It was an amp head and a speaker. We traveled there, then rented a van, a huge one. I mean, a big one. And we're doing one-nighters.
Wow.
It took us 2 hours to unload. We didn't have roadies. So it took us 2 hours to unload the van and then set up and do the concert. Pack everything up, load it back in the van. It had to be done a certain way because there was just enough room to fit everything. Get back in the van and drive like 8 hours. And we do this for a month.
We're talking about Europe in the 70s with borders, of course, and different
every
currencies.
Time and there was the Bader Meinhof gang was around, and sometimes we would have 8 hours in line to get through the border because there was these terrorists. And then, we'd have a gig in Austria, and then we have a gig in Germany, and then a gig in Switzerland, then a gig in France. And the money, like every country had a different money.
Yeah.
And we had to figure out, like, okay, now we're in France. Okay, there's 6 francs to $1. And that does that, and then it was 100 and something. What do you call them?
Deutschmarks or
shillings. Deutschmarks were 2.5 for $1, and then the one in Austria, I can't remember what they were called. Shillings. There was like 80 shillings to $1 or something. So we had to deal with all the different, completely weird monies. And Switzerland had another one. I can't even remember. Francs.
Yeah, man.
But it was different than the French franc.
Yeah, sure. Wow. Yeah. That's
so
bizarre.
Anyway, and then we also went to the Eastern European country. We went to Hungary. We went to Poland. We went to Yugoslavia.
Oh, you were here. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, we were in Split.
Oh, in Croatia. No, wow, beautiful. But you see, really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, we were in Split, and I said we were in Hungary. We were in East Berlin. We were in
Wow.
regular Berlin. We were
That's
all
amazing.
we toured all the time,
Yeah.
and it was hard work. Like I said,
Yeah.
eventually we got kind of a roadie guy to help us later on, but.
Man.
Those were the days. But I mean, imagine. I mean, nowadays they say, "You mean you brought a drum set? I mean, you
Yeah.
brought your bass?" And then the whole thing of bringing the bass on the airplane. That was
Yeah. That's like science fiction nowadays. I mean, it's
yeah, and like
incredible.
sometimes it was doable. Other times you had to fight to get the bass on the
Yeah.
airplane. I mean, I've had the bass in the airplane, all strapped in, ready to go, and they said, "Captain, request that you remove the bass from the airplane."
Wow.
And I'm like, "No." I said, "If you want me removed, you have to call the police and have me moved. I have a ticket for the bass.
Yeah.
You pay for half ticket."
Sure. Yeah.
I said, the only way you're going to get me off is you're going to have to remove me.
Man.
And there'd be a standoff, and eventually they would give in, realizing like they're going to have to empty the whole plane
Yeah.
and do and do all that. So they said, just let them go.
Man. Yeah. It's I've heard so many stories about the 70s touring in Europe. It seems like a completely different world. It's like way. It sounds romantic in a way, but I know it. It probably was.
There were great moments, and there
Yeah.
were the horrible moments. It's what it is. But it was amazing.
Yeah.
And the people I met, and the musicians that because we did a lot of festivals, and to be all these,
Yeah.
I remember we played the Merce Festival, which is a free jazz festival. And we're going on Double Image, and it was our first tour. And we didn't have a record out yet. We did a record on that tour.
Oh, wow.
But we didn't have anything else. People didn't know who we were. And so we went on at 2 a.m. after the Art Ensemble of Chicago, which was like, they're great. They were great.
Yeah.
And but they had a huge following. I mean, they were like, and they were on their 4th encore.
Wow.
And we got up there, and they were still wanting the Art Ensemble. And it was an angry mob. And we got up there, and we said, "What are we going to do?" And we just, said, "Okay, we're just going to play." We just started playing hard as we could. By the end, we got them. They loved us.
Yeah.
But it was like, when we started, I thought they were going to storm the stage. I thought it was like January 9th. I said, "Oh no," I thought they were going to lynch us or something, like they were really angry that we were up there.
Yeah.
But then we played, and they realized that we meant business, and it went pretty well.
That's amazing. Wow, that's incredible. But I wanted to ask you also this, speaking of the 70s, how did I love that band with Steve Slagle and Bob Moses and Steve Kuhn. And you guys did I think 4 records for ECM. How did that story begin with Steve actually? And how was that experience like for you?
Oh, it was great. Actually, I got Steve on the gig because I knew him from Berkeley, and I actually got Mike Smith on the first record too. Amazing drummer, because I had played with him. He's from DC, and so we had the first record was Mike Smith.
Oh, okay.
And who passed away a long time ago. He was way too young. Great drummer. It was Mike Smith and Slagle.
Yeah.
And we went over and recorded for ECM. That was a great band.
How was that experience like recording for ECM? I mean, like Manfred and all this sizzle behind it.
We did one record at the Studio Bauer
Oh yeah,
which is
yeah,
the one in Germany, and then we did one in Norway at Kongs Bar, whatever it's called.
yeah, yeah.
We did one there, so I got to record in both of those studios.
Mm.
And I mean, these are really high end people,
Yeah, yeah, sure.
and like they know what they're doing. So it was really fun to record with them.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and
Beautiful.
so yeah, so we did that, and then Steve decided to make a change, and then he brought Sheila on the gig.
Yeah. And that's how you started with Sheila, the duo, also kind of through that.
Yeah, well, yes and no. Actually, no. Um, how I met Sheila is that's another story. I have a lot of
Oh yeah,
crazy
please come.
stories.
Yeah, please.
If you can deal with these
Oh no,
stories.
I love this. That's why we do this, just to so you share this. It's history, man. It's like it's amazing. So
Well, when I was in high school, I had this friend, and I didn't have that many friends, but he loved jazz, and he calls me up one day. He says, "Harvey, you got to get over here now." He says, "You got to hear this." So I get on my bicycle, which I still get on my bicycle. But anyway, I get on my bicycle and go over his house, and he plays me. He says, "You got to listen to this." He plays me this record, and it was this really wild, crazy stuff. And then this vocalist comes on, and it was George Russell's "You Are My Sunshine" with Sheila Jordan. And I went, damn, that is killing. I just loved it. I said, wow. I said, why the hell doesn't Sheila Jordan come to Boston? I want to hear her sing. I said, because I at the time I was thinking, vocalists, I don't want to listen to vocalists. Sure. I'm into Coltrane and I'm into Miles. But then I heard Sheila sing and I went, damn, now that's happening. So anyway, I'm in New York. And like my first gig in New York, was Lee Konitz.
Oh wow, really? I didn't know that. Wow.
I was in a band with Lee Konitz, Masuo, who was playing with Sonny Rollins at the time, and Jimmy Madison.
Wow.
That was the band, and we were working a lot. We were playing at a club called the Onlyest Place, which was before that was the Half Note.
Oh, okay.
When the Half Note moved uptown, this guy took over that club, and he was a guy that took over. He meant well, but it maybe lasted a year, because he was a kind of an alcoholic and he wasn't taking care of business and stuff. But it was a great thing. But we would get booked in there 7 nights a week, so I would go in there with 7 nights and play with Lee Konitz all the time. And that was great. Let's face it, Lee Konitz. Such a creative,
an amazing player,
great player. So anyway, we're playing there, and such a crazy time. So I'm playing there, and Lee says to me, he says, Harvey says, Sheila Jordan's in the audience. Do you think? Do you mind if I maybe ask her to come up and sing with? I went, yeah. I went, yeah. I lit up like, wow. Okay. So Sheila comes up and joins us, and it ended up. I know this is like a real. I wish I had an iPhone in those days.
Yeah.
It ended up like at the end of I don't know how it happened, but Lee and Sheila started singing together. And they I don't know why, but somehow they were singing what we call the liverwurst song. They started singing about liverwurst.
Okay.
Sheila and Lee. And, plus we did jazz tunes and everything.
Yeah.
It was really great. I mean, I was so excited. I said, I said to Sheila, I said, wow. I said, I've been a big fan of yours from when I was in high school. And I said, it's just a thrill to meet you, and it's so great to play with you. And she says, oh, thank you very much. She says, look, would you be interested in doing any gigs with me? I went, I was like, she's asking me to do a gig. Sheila Jordan. I was like, really, like, and then Lee says to me, look, can you give Sheila a ride home? Because I had a car, and she lived on 18th Street, so it was right on the way, and I didn't care anyway. So I said, give her a ride. Sure, I give Sheila a ride. So she got in the car, and we talked, and we kind of became friends. And so then I started to work with her at the Tin Palace. And I was with this guy, Johnny Knapp, piano player. And, we started, and Beaver Harris. That was, we were working together. So, and I started doing a lot of gigs with her. And then she joined Kuhn's band. So we were already friends and playing together.
Okay.
And now we're on the road, and we're traveling all over the world, but look, we get to these hotels. Moses doesn't have his drums. Kuhn doesn't have his piano. I have my bass.
Yeah.
So Sheila says, "Why don't you bring your bass over to the room? Let's play some tunes." I said, "Great." So we started playing together, we would do this on a regular basis. I would just play with her a lot. So then we get back to New York, on one of these tours, not, right away, one of these tours. And she calls me up, she says, "Harvie, I got a gig I want you to do." I said, "Oh, great, great." And she says, I said, "Where is it?" She says, "Oh, it's in Philadelphia. We're doing a benefit for WRTI, the radio station." I said, "Great, great. Who's in the band?" And she says, "You." I said, "Yeah, I know." I said, "Who's playing piano?" "Nobody."
Yeah.
"Guitar?" "Nobody." "Drums?" "Nobody." I said, "What are you talking about?" She says, "Yeah, it's going to just be you and me." I said, "No way." Here comes the argument again.
Yeah.
And we had to have an argument. I'm like, "No, Sheila, there's just no way I'm going to play. I don't know how, what am I going to do?" I said, "Well, you're out of your mind." I said, "Let's get a piano player and do the gig." She says, "No, I'm into bass and voice, and I want you to do the gig." I said, "All right." I said, "I'll do it under this condition, that we rehearse."
Yeah.
So I said, "We're going to have to do a lot of rehearsing." So the gig was in a few months. It wasn't like the next day or anything. So Sheila used to be a secretary, she used to work at Doyle, Dane and Birnbach, and Sheila was always like, she would, it was in the 50s. She'd always walk to work in the morning, and she'd walk home.
Yeah.
So on her way home, one day a week, she would stop by my place, and we would rehearse. And I said the other thing, I said, "Look at Sheila, I am not going to get on that bandstand and read music.
Yeah.
I'm going to have everything memorized of what we do." And I played with her for 14 years, and I never read a chart in 14 years. I said, we're going to work on introductions. We're going to not work on how we're going to play, but I want to have strong introductions. I want to have a method for each tune, tempos, idea, what we're going to do. We might end up rehearsing 5 different ways, but let's pick the best way. And so we really did some severe rehearsing. And then, she'd come over, we'd do the rehearsal a couple of hours, and my wife and I would make her dinner, and then we'd have a big dinner together. And then in those days, she could actually walk, she only lived 10 blocks from me. And at night she would walk home, which I was not happy. A lot of times I'd walk down and walk her most of the way home, make sure she'd be okay. And so we rehearsed, and then we got to this concert, and I was a wreck. I was so nervous. And so we did this concert, and I actually have a recording of it. It's
Oh,
not a
really?
good recording. Yeah, I
Oh,
actually
wow.
have a recording of it. I've never been able to listen to it. Uh, but I know seriously, I've never listened to it. Someday I will.
Yeah.
So anyway, we did the concert and we got 5 encores.
Oh, wow. So you have to
We
listen to it, man.
we
It's
right. We played an hour set, took a break, and then we played another hour, and we
wow.
got 4 or 5 encores. People, and after the concert, I'm thinking to myself, yeah, she's maybe onto something. Maybe this isn't so bad. Maybe I can do this.
Yeah.
And so then we started this bass and voice duo.
Yeah.
And we did it for like 14 years.
That's incredible. Yeah. That's why you have such a chemistry. I mean, when you listen to the records, it's just like really what you said now,
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, the only recording, quite truthfully, the other one, they're all okay, but the only one is the one that came out later. It was called Yesterdays.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the one. I think I sent it to you.
I think I've listened to it. Yeah.
That's the one. That
Yeah.
shows what we can do. The other recordings were sort of studio. We did some stuff in Japan under very poor conditions. Really poor conditions. That's
Yeah.
another story. I don't even want to talk about it. I get so depressed. Yeah, it was great stuff. But I mean, actually now it's interesting. We're still playing together. We didn't play together for a long time.
Yeah.
We kind of ended the duo and we stopped playing together. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, we started playing together, but not duo. Only we play a lot with Alan Broadbent.
Yeah.
Because what happened was we were on a tour on the West Coast, and before we went, the club owner, it's a place called Kimball's, said, "I don't think this is a good bass and voice room. Can you guys have a piano player?" So we decided to maybe do this tour with a piano on a bunch of the gigs. We played in L.A. and San Francisco area. So, and I said to Sheila, I said, "Look at Sheila. The best piano player on the West Coast is Alan Broadbent." I said, period. There's great players, but I said, nobody's better than Alan. And Alan knows how to play with vocalists.
Yeah.
Because he made those records with, what's her name? Corral.
Diana Krall.
Diana. Yeah. And so, but no, Diana Krall.
Yeah.
Not Crawl, because that's the other.
Oh,
he
Krall.
did both.
Yeah.
He did with both.
Yeah.
He ended up.
I mean, with the really, really famous one now, kind of.
Now's the fan, but he played with the other one, those duo records. So I'm saying he really knows how to do. I said, "You're gonna love Alan." So anyway, long story short, we did this whole tour, which was great, and about 5 years ago, I get a call from this record label saying, we have a recording that you guys did. It was a radio broadcast.
Oh, wow.
And we want to put it out as a CD. And I said, great. It was me, Alan, and Sheila. And I said, that's great. I said, but I have to produce it.
Mm.
I said, I'm not letting you just take it.
Yeah.
He said, okay. And Sheila said to me, she says, "Oh yeah, you have to produce," because I I do a lot of producing, and the record, the Yesterday's record. I mean, I put that together. I mean, you have no idea what I did. I mean, it took me like 6 months to put that record together from the like with the Mike Stern record.
Yeah.
A lot of work to cut it. I mean, you hear it; it's pretty flawless, but it was a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so, but it's interesting. This one, I didn't have to do that much. And it's called Better Than Anything.
Okay, I have to check it out. Don't know this one.
It's beautiful. And it's a live broadcast. And that's Sheila at her best.
Oh, wow. Okay.
She's not a studio. I mean, she of course sings in a studio. It's great, but her best is when she's live
Yeah.
and not knowing
Yeah, yeah.
she's recording.
Yeah, sure.
And
Sure.
so this record is beautiful. It's called, Better Than Anything, and it came out really good. So after that, Sheila and I were talking, and we just started to we've been doing a lot of gigs with me, Sheila, and Alan. We
Oh,
haven't
yeah.
recorded again, but there's talk of that.
Ah, super. But with Alan,
And
you played before?
what?
With Alan, you played before also already, or
Alan Broadbent?
Broadbent? Yeah, because
We did.
you did these trio records. I mean, I listened to the Trio in Motion, which is beautiful, but that you also produced, right? But with Alan,
Yeah.
you played before, or?
Yeah, well, Alan and I went to Berkeley together.
Ah, okay.
But
Wow, okay.
when I started Berkeley, I was a piano player. And I started to play the bass, and I wasn't very good. How good are you going to be? So Alan was the big star in school. He was like writing for the #1 band playing piano. I mean, Alan's just one of the most amazing musicians I've ever met in my life. And so I didn't really do much playing with him, but I knew him. And then when I was living in New York, I did a gig with Diane Krall, and he came there, and we played together there in New York, and it was great. And then we played together, out in the West Coast with Sheila, in the '90s, and then. What else? We did something else together. Oh yeah, then we also, Sheila said, Sheila says, I want to make a string quartet record. And I said, Sheila, Alan is the arranger for you.
Yeah, he's a great arranger. Yeah.
And she says, do you mean he's an arranger? I said, yeah. I said, and he knows how to write for strings. I said, my strong suggestion is that you have Alan write the arrangements. So then he wrote it was actually Marvin Smitty Smith on this. I got him on that record. It's called Heartstrings.
Okay.
And we did a string quartet record with me, Marvin, and Alan Broadbent playing piano, and he wrote the arrangements.
Yeah.
So I played with him there. Then he moved to New York about 7 years ago. And I got in touch with him. We had been in touch on, emails. He said, I'm moving to New York. I said, that's good. So then we've been playing together pretty steady since he moved here. We've done a lot of recordings and, a lot of gigs together.
Yeah. Yeah, with Billy Mintz, I love that trio, man. It's like Billy also such a great player.
And that was a situation where, I've been playing so much with Alan. I said, Alan, this trio is really starting to sound good. We got to record. He says, well, I don't like doing it in the studio. I get out, the red light goes on, and you play. And he was like, and he says, and then we need to have a regular gig. And then he was just, I said, I'm thinking, we've got to record this trio. And I could buy a gun and force him to do it, or I got to find another way.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what to do. So I said, look at Alan, let's do some recording in your house.
Oh, okay. That's how you guys do it. Okay.
And I bought a machine and I set it up.
Yeah.
I started recording. And we did about 4 or 5 recording dates.
Yeah.
And I mean, look I figured out a way to get a great sound.
Yeah, it sounds beautiful. Yeah.
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 And Alan said, yeah, okay. So we picked the best stuff that we did and came out with the first record, which was called
New York Stories. This one.
New York Stories.
Yeah.
New York Notes.
Notes. Yeah, Notes.
Yeah, New York. I never remember names anymore. New York Notes. And then High Note wanted another record. So then we did the same thing again. I just recorded it again,
Yeah.
And I mixed it and produced it. And we did that. And both of those did really well on the Jazz Week charts and
I
everything.
saw it. Yeah.
I think we went to number 2 on New York Notes and then went to number 4 on Trio in Motion. But boy, were we up against competition. We were up against, the people that always chart, like Gregory Porter, and then there was Chick Corea, Christian McBride, like all these people were on the, and Artemis. And so, but we managed to hang in with them. We were on the charts for 15 weeks in the top 50.
Amazing. Yeah.
And we went to number 6 and stayed in the top 10 for like 2 months. So yeah, I feel pretty good about that.
Definitely. Yeah.
So, that was kind of cool. So, we're going to continue with this trio. I think we'll do another record. In fact, I'm going to Alan's on Monday. We just keep trying on a regular basis.
That's smart.
The COVID,
that's really
we're
smart.
not working.
Yeah,
we just played Smalls. In fact, there's a video out now.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
The Smalls.
That came out pretty good. They came out pretty nice.
Yeah, beautiful.
So we're trying to keep that together, and I've been lucky. It's like I said to people. I said, I've never, as a bass player, I've never really been in. I've never been the big star. But I've never been out.
Oh, definitely, man. Come on.
So I'm always playing. I keep going. I'm not the big star on the bass, and nor do I care. I used to make a joke. I used to say, in the music business, I said I never planned on making very much money, and I've been very successful at that.
Man, come on. No.
Yeah. No, I can't complain. I'm doing very well.
It's beautiful stuff. So thanks so much for sharing all this stuff. So beautiful.
Great. So
Dr. Jazz.